Please be reminded, David Kramer, software engineer from Dropbox, will not be able to attend our summit today. He apologized to all of us. So, next, we will have Mr. Edwin Chen and Mr. Prakash Sundaresan, Chief Technology Officer, Microsoft Asia Pacific Research and Development Group. As Chief Technology Officer for Microsoft Asia Pacific Research and Development Group, Sundaresan assists Dr. Zhang Yaqi, ARD Chairman, charge ARD strategy and agenda for both the global and China markets, as well as facilitate ARD's transformation into a key global research, innovation, and product development base for Microsoft. Prior to this position, Sundaresan served as General Manager of Servers and Tools Business China since 2009. Under his leadership, STB China set up the China Cloud Innovation Center in 2010, specifically to help the government, partners, and customers in China be successful with their adoption of Microsoft Cloud technologies. Now, let's welcome Mr. Sundaresan and Mr. Chen. Their presentation topic is Building Application on Windows Azure.
Thank you. Boy, that was a long introduction. It's great to be here. I want to thank the organizers for inviting us. I must say, I've given many talks at many conferences, but never in a setting like this with a beer house and a wedding club and a movie theater as the background. Okay, it's great to be here. As I was introduced, I'm the Chief Technology Officer for our Asia Pacific R&D operations. Microsoft has R&D in China. In fact, China's our second biggest R&D site outside, the biggest outside the US, so second biggest globally. I want to start, before I dive in, asking you, how many of you have heard about Windows Azure? Show of hands. Okay, good proportion of the room. How many of you have used Windows Azure? Much smaller. Okay, and then how many of you think Windows Azure is not relevant to you because it's Windows-based? Let's be honest. Come on. All right, good. I'll start there. Can we switch to the slide on the top?
Which one is that?
All right. Okay. So I'll be the main speaker, and then we have Edwin Chong here who will be helping me with some of the demos. The first thing I want to say is this is actually a very common misperception that Windows Azure is only Windows-based and does not support all the open source operating systems and packages that you all know and love. So the first thing I want to say is actually we took that feedback and we're changing the name of Windows Azure to be Microsoft Azure. And I'm not the one announcing this. This was announced a couple of days ago. This will be effective April 3rd. But the reason, the thing I want you to take away is, hopefully not just by me saying it, but us showing you, is that Windows Azure and now Microsoft Azure is a really open platform. Okay? All right. So first I want to take a few minutes to introduce this notion of a cloud OS. I think all of us are familiar with the OS. We know a PC has an OS, a mobile phone has an OS, a server has an OS. A cloud should have an OS. So what should a cloud OS do? Right? So a cloud OS should do kind of the same types of things that a OS does, which is manage resources, provide you compute, storage, networking, but really help you connect your data center. If you're an established IT company, you probably have a data center of your own. Maybe you use a partner, a hoster, or a telco to really connect that data center to the public cloud now, right? So transform your data center. That's the first thing. The second thing is it needs to help you build the modern applications that everybody wants to build, that are mobile first and web first, right? And we'll see examples of that. The third thing is, obviously, all these applications, social networks, devices are producing a huge amount of data. And you want to take advantage of that data and get insights. Nowadays, the term is big data insights, but you want insights from your data. That's something that a cloud OS should be able to help you do. And the fourth thing, the last thing is, you want to be able to manage all the resources, not just in the data center, but your users, your devices, and do it from a people-centric point of view, not just from a device-centric point of view. You want to put the person at the center, whether it's an employee or a consumer, and manage your resources that way. So those are some of the key functions what we think is a cloud OS. Now, the key distinguishing feature of Microsoft's approach to the cloud OS is what we call hybrid cloud. So hybrid cloud means we acknowledge the public cloud is a huge force. In fact, we run one of the biggest public clouds in the world. There are probably very few mega cloud implying over 1 million servers. We run one of those. So certainly public cloud is important. But it's not the only thing. Customers want to run some applications in their own data centers. They want to build private clouds. Providers, whether it's hosters, telcos, want to run clouds and offer those services. So we want to make sure there's a consistent experience across public, hosted, and private clouds. And that's a key differentiator for us. So drilling down into that, we're trying to provide one platform across, as I mentioned, private, public, and hosted clouds. Why? Because you might start an application on your private cloud, and then later when it scales, you want more capacity, you might want to move it to a public cloud. You might start an application on the public cloud, and for some reason, whether you want more control or you want to move to a different provider, you may want to move it to a different service provider, or you might want to bring it back in-house. So workload mobility turns out to be very, very key for customers, and that's a key advantage for us. In addition, we want to provide a common user experience for all our cloud, a common development platform, common tools, common manageability, right? Make your life as developers and as administrators who are going to run these apps simple, so you have to learn only one set of skills and tools, and you can use them across all these different platforms. All right, so let me talk about Windows Azure, now we call it Microsoft Azure, and what that really is. So this chart is a little bit busy. I apologize if you cannot see it from the back, but there are screens on the sides. So I want to take a few minutes to really walk through this. First, I will say Microsoft Azure is a global cloud platform. We have data centers all across the world. We have data centers in North America. We have data centers in Europe. We have data centers in Asia. We have one right here in Hong Kong. And we will have more. In fact, we have already announced data centers in Japan, in Australia, in Brazil, and in mainland China, and I will talk more about that later. So first of all, it's global reach at massive, massive scale. So if you're a startup, it's an amazing way to scale your application to a global audience. The second thing I will say is Microsoft Azure provides all the basic building blocks that you would expect of any cloud platform. So compute. And we have a variety of different ways of compute, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. Storage. Not only traditional relational storage, but Hadoop-based storage, streaming data, tables, blobs, whatever you want. Not only the ones we build, but from partners like MongoDB, MySQL, and others on the platform. The third thing, of course, is networking. And we have a very extensive network infrastructure that helps you connect to your users with CDN and other high, advanced facilities, but also important for enterprise customers, helps them connect their public cloud back to their private enterprise environment. So VPN support, virtual private networking support, so you can extend your on-premises data center to the public cloud. But these are, at this point, table stakes. These are just the things that you must have to be even considered a public cloud. In addition to that, Azure provides a very rich set of higher-level application services, optimized for some of the most commonly used patterns. So if you want to build mobile apps, and Edwin will show you a demo of that in a few minutes, there's a very easy way to build a backend for mobile apps, whatever the mobile platform you're targeting. You want to build video streaming apps, and I'll talk about some examples of massive scale that people have used to do that. You want to build websites at internet scale. You want to do big data analytics. You want to do streaming data. All of these are provided as higher level services so you can get to your application and time to value very, very quickly. And the last thing I want to point out at the top of the slide is Azure supports a variety of different programming languages and entry points. Of course, you would expect it to support .NET, which is Microsoft's offering, but that's one in a series of offerings, whether it's Java, PHP, Node.js, Python. All of those are supported as first-class citizens. So that's very important for you to understand as well. We have many startups who start with their own open source environment, and then they adopt Azure, and they don't have to rip and replace. They just move to using our hardware instead of buying expensive hardware and putting in a colo and running that. All right. So this slide, next one, talks about the different compute options that I mentioned on the previous slide. And I won't go through all the details. The slides will be available later, but I want to hit on some of the key points. The first one is what you might know as IaaS, or infrastructure as a service, right? So that's the first compute model. You have a virtual machine, you can move it to the public cloud. That can be a Windows virtual machine, that can be a Linux virtual machine. That can be from a set of images that we provide, or you just create your own image, a VHD file, and upload it to the cloud, and you can be off and running. The format is exactly the same, whether it's on your premises or in the public cloud. There's no translation, no conversion to be done. That lets you run any workload that you have developed and move that to the public cloud. So that's kind of the first mode of compute that we offer. The second mode of compute that we offer is what we call cloud services. So think about it as this is a general purpose service. You can build anything you want out of this. This is just raw compute. It comes in two modes. There's a worker role and a web role. A web role, you can think of it as a virtual machine running IIS. So you can upload your web application, scale your web tier. A worker role can run anything you want. Any set of packages you upload can run in a worker role. So you can build an arbitrarily complex application using web roles and worker roles and then scale them infinitely. So that's the second type of compute model. The third type, and actually there's a fourth and a fifth, but the third type on this slide I will mention is we try to optimize, as I mentioned, for common use cases. So this one is called websites. Obviously, websites are a common use case, so we want to be able to have you run websites in an easy way. So you just need to upload your ASP.NET application, PHP application, Node.js application, and then scale it and configure it the way you want. So all of these come with a 99.95% monthly SLA, infinite scale across all those data centers that I mentioned, as well as I mentioned, support for Linux, support for all kinds of OSS packages, as well as development tools, Git, GitHub, all of those. And you can develop and deploy from whatever platform you're using, whether you're using a Mac or a Linux workstation, or of course a Windows workstation, right? So that's kind of our quick overview of our compute platform. Now, the next one we want to talk about, and as a pattern that is obviously very important, is a mobile application. And most mobile applications have two parts. They have a on-device part, and they have a cloud part, right? So I'm not going to talk a lot about this slide. I'm going to hand it over to Edwin, who will show you a live demo of how to build a mobile application that can target any device in a short amount of time. Edwin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Prakash. Thank you very much. Let me switch over to my screen here. Oops. Let me switch over to my screen there. Okay, that's my desktop. All right, so I'm going to talk about or show you, if most of you have not seen what Azure actually is, I'm going to show you first, walk you through the portal. We call it the Azure Management Portal. So when you first go into and log into Windows Azure, you will see a portal like this that you can manage all the different kinds of cloud services you have you can use. So quickly go over that. Okay, guys, you can see it. Maybe make it bigger. Yeah. So let me move it. So if you go over that, on the portal you can see all kinds of like virtual machines, websites, cloud services, databases, storage, HT Insights, which we also will be talking about that later, media service, service bus, BizTalk, whatever, all kinds of services that you can manage. You can see it in here. Okay, so I will go into mobile service first. Okay, so mobile service, as Prakash has described it about, we actually allow developers of different platforms, mobile platforms, to use it, not just for the Microsoft specific ones. So you can see if you want to develop an iPhone apps, Android apps, HTML, Xamarin phone apps, you can all use mobile service to allow your platform to connect to it. There are two parts. So we have specific SDK for each platform, so you can use your familiar tools on your Mac or on your PC to do your mobile apps. The mobile service in here on Azure actually providing the backend platforms for different purposes. So, for example, on your mobile applications, you probably require to access data, or maybe you have to store some data on the backend or on the cloud. So we provide data service that you can manage your your data schema. Instead of going to use or provision a database, we provide a very easy to use interface for even non-database developers to manage your data. And also we provide APIs that you can define or create your own API using the whatever languages you like to use. In this example here, in my demo, I created a product service which uses Node.js to write all my codes on Windows Azure mobile service. That you can see in here, I defined all these HTTP GET protocol for the post protocol, patch, HTTP put, and the delete for handling different kinds of functions. Like for the product example, I am inserting a new product, delete a new product, update your product, etc., etc. I'll come back to this one later. And then on mobile service, we can also use one of the very common user scenarios that we want to push send some push notifications to different platforms. On mobile service, we support different mobile devices push notifications. For example, in here we have Apple, Google's, and also we support the Windows applications push as well. So you can use it to push easily to any mobile platforms you like. Next one is the identity. For your mobile applications, unless you don't need to allow users to log in, otherwise if you're creating an enterprise or ROB applications, you require to do some authentications. So in here, we support different kinds of social network authentication methods, like the Microsoft accounts, Facebook, Twitter's, Google's, also the Windows Azure Active Directory. So you can even use your on-premise or your domain Active Directory in your office to authenticate your mobile users through your mobile devices or your mobile apps.
So if you are using Azure to build an enterprise application, you probably use Active Directory.
So you can just reuse your Active Directory in your office to allow your user to log on to your mobile device through your domain account or your domain credentials. Okay, I'll go back to APIs. In my Node.js, I actually have written some Node.js code to define some custom functions, APIs. For example, if I go down to one of the functions to get a product, you can see that I'm actually sending my request, I'm receiving my requests, and then I am trying to contact another service. Presumably, you can imagine that that service is at your backend in your office, behind your firewall. So very often, you want to touch your ERP platform on premise. So how do we do that easily through mobile service on Windows Azure? One thing is on Windows Azure, we also have a service called the Service
Obviously, the
Bus.
name change hasn't yet sunk in.
Oh, sorry, yeah. On Microsoft Azure, we have a service called the Service Bus. So what Service Bus is, you can imagine that as you can imagine that as a relays on the cloud that redirect requests from the internet through your firewall to an endpoint behind your firewall in your office. So in this case, for the product service, I am going to run on my Service template here. I have actually a database, and also I will try to run a service on my template here, pretending to be the endpoints behind my firewall. Let me do that. I have written a console apps. So when it starts up, it will contact the Service Bus on the cloud and publish some endpoints through the HTTP, TCP, or other common protocols. So if I go back to my Service Bus, I can do a refresh on this. You will see that some new endpoints has just been published on my relays called the product and on different protocols. So you can imagine that as for the endpoints on the cloud for your mobile applications to connect to, and eventually it will route the request through the firewall in your corporations and contact an endpoint or a service inside your office. Right. So you don't have to expose or open extra additional port to allow your service to go through, to get out.
If you ever build an enterprise application, you know how difficult it can be to tunnel through all the VPNs and stuff. For this, you get for free, which is quite a significant benefit.
So this API here, this API here is actually doing exactly like this one, using Node.js, contacting or talking to the Service Bus endpoints. I just published so that it will allow me to update my database here. So I'm just saying, making up the Service Bus endpoints addressed, and it will go through it. Okay, let me go to show you the apps. The apps I obviously uses a Visual Studio to prepare my apps. I have a Windows Phone apps here, but it will also works the same. If you even have iOS or an Android apps, it works the same actually. So going through the code, I first show you one of the things that my application, my phone apps doing, it's doing authentication. So the authenticate service in here actually through the Active Directory of on the cloud to do an Active Directory domain account logs in. And then after that, it will try to contact my Service Bus endpoints through the mobile service and get an update of the product lists. So I can quickly run that in here. Oh, I have my simulator already open. So let me click through it and put in my Active Directory credential. It's a little bit long. Bear with me. next time I should make it shorter. And also my password, which is also a strong password. And it's very, yeah, you can see what I'm typing, I know. Oh, and also, I have to better do it like this.
So you could also federate with Facebook,
Right.
Google ID, your Microsoft account, any of the popular ones.
Okay, so it got through. So my mobile applications is actually using the mobile service to authenticate with my Active Directory in my company. So it then talks to the service I just has run. So you can see that my service console is received a request of get the product lists. So it will return the list of data through REST, XML, JSON to my mobile phone. What I would do is I try to put in a new product. I love the Lumia phones. I want to sell it. I put in a category of phone, and then I will sell it at a very bargain price of $200. I'll save it. Okay, when I press save, what you will see is I also will be sending a notification through the push notification service of mobile service to my phone. So you will see in here, I'm actually receiving a push notifications. The same way that you can also configure on the Azure Management Portal for any other platforms like the iPhone and Android OS as well.
All right.
Okay.
Great. That was a quick demo of backend, how to build a simple mobile application in a few minutes. And again, you can do this on iOS, you can do this on Android. The great part is the backend code is exactly the same, right? You can target all the different platforms right once on the backend. All right, let's switch to a different topic. Now you have an application, it's running, you have lots of users. Your startup is really doing well, and you're collecting lots of data. And next thing you want to do is start analyzing that data, get more insights, improve the performance. So obviously, there's a variety of different techniques. But today, we're going to talk about Hadoop. And Microsoft Azure offers a service called HD Insight. HD Insight is Microsoft's Hadoop service. We build it out of exactly 100% Apache Hadoop compatible. In fact, we partner with Hortonworks. Hortonworks is one of the distributors of Apache Hadoop. So we partner with them deeply and bring Hadoop to Azure with, how many people have used Hadoop in the room? Okay, some. How many people have configured a Hadoop cluster and successfully finished?
How long? How much time you take?
Almost zero hands in the room that I can see. If you ever
One.
Okay, congratulations. We should hand you an award.
I should talk to you later and figure out how much time you spend on it to configure that.
I mean, those of you who have done this know that configuring a Hadoop cluster is probably the most difficult part of actually using Hadoop. With a service that we can provide in the cloud, it's a few clicks and you're up and running. In a matter of 20 minutes, something like that, we can configure an entire Hadoop cluster for you at massive scale. And with the enterprise security and manageability that you would expect out of a service like Azure. You can develop your code in .NET or Java. You can deploy that to run in Hadoop. And it comes with analytics that's integrated into Excel, which is the most widely used sort of information worker tool. So again, without spending too much time on the slide, let me hand it back to Edwin for a quick demo.
Okay. So my next demo on Hadoop, big data. I'm not going to spend, I don't have enough time here today to really demonstrate a great big data scenario, but I want to set the stage now for the scenario I'm going to do. Let me play a
Can
short
you get the video volume?
I found this video yesterday on the web, and I found it's really interesting and relevant to our.
After certain mathematical problems were simply cannot be solved, we could focus the attention of the computer on one of them.
Computer, this is a Class A compulsory directive. Compute to the last digit the value of pi. As we know, the value of pi is a transcendental figure without resolution. The computer banks will work on this problem to the exclusion of all else until we order it to stop.
Man, that should keep that thing busy for a while.
Yeah, that will keep that thing busy for a while, right? So, Mr. Spock in the 21st century actually has ran into a problem of computing the number of pi. Oops, where's my screen again? Where's my screen? Okay, so back to the 21st century. Today, how are we going to compute the estimate of pi with traditional computing? We might probably have to purchase a huge set of hardware, build a big clusters. You can use a MapReduce algorithm of the Hadoop to solve some of those problems. I hope that Mr. Spock also knows that there is a cloud computing, so they don't have to run everything on the enterprise. They can submit the jobs to the Star Cloud, and it should work. So how do we do it today on Earth? So on Windows Azure, HD Insights is our code name for the Hadoop migrations to the cloud. We can through the portal to create a Hadoop cluster by giving it a cluster name. We can tell it how many data nodes, for example, and then what's the Hadoop versions, and in which region of the data center we want to provision it. Some username. I'm not really going to provision it, but I will quickly run through this wizard in here. Okay, let me put in password. Oops, it wants a really strong password. Oops. Hey. Okay.
The hardest part is writing the right password.
To figure out the right password. Let me still couldn't. Anyway, I figured it out. Anyway, it's only going to ask you a few more questions, like the passwords and where you want to put it, and then how many nodes you want for your cluster. After you have passed through and figured out the right password, that's the last steps. Then Azure is going out and provision it if I click Finish or Submit. So in 20 minutes time, you will see a Hadoop cluster set up like this. Has the management portal that you can quickly go through and manage it and look at it and monitoring it.
So you asked for 4 nodes?
I have a 4-node cluster with 24 cores here. Okay. In order to submit a job to the Hadoop cluster, we use Powershell. PowerShell. Open the Windows Azure PowerShell. Hadoop demos is actually a little bit boring because it always has to require you to go through the PowerShell. Oops, doesn't look too good. Let me put in another. Let's use this one. Okay, it's better like this. Oops. And I make it a little bit bigger. Okay. So everything, all the interaction with the Hadoop cluster have to go through the PowerShell. So I have some PowerShell scripts already has prepared, and let me put in some of those parameters first. I paste in some Hadoop parameters, and then this command in here, get Azure HD inside cluster. I'm just going to check if my cluster is alive. Oops. Oops. Here. Right. Okay. So this command is going to show me my cluster of 4 nodes is actually alive. It's ready to accept command. So I will submit the Pi job now. The Pi job that I'm going to submit is like this. It's taking a parameter of a jar file, and then I'm going to tell it to create 16 maps, and for each map, generate 10 million samples. And I'm going to submit this one into the 4-node Hadoop cluster. Oops, this is the definitions. And the next line of the Hadoop command is really going to start the job in here. Right, okay. So
how many digits are we going to calculate?
I'm going to calculate up to maybe 8 or 9 only. I'm going to submit a very quick job. I'm not going to spend until the end of the century for wait until it's there to end. So I'm submitting another command in here again to monitor the status of my job. My job of the Pi calculation is running on 16 maps, 10 million samples on 4 nodes and 32 cores. It's not going to take a century. It's going to take like 60 seconds or 30 seconds to complete. So you can see that the status of the map. It will go refresh in just a few seconds, and then it will complete the mapping part and also the reduce part. So the next things I can do is to take a look at the output, and that should make Mr. Spock really happy about that. Get the job output of the 10 maps, 16 maps, and 3.14 whatever. Right. So this is a very quick sample of we can provision a Hadoop cluster in like less than 20 minutes, up and running. So you can just submit your map reduce jobs in through the console.
Great. I want to say live long and prosper. All right. So you saw we can run Hadoop jobs on Azure, but actually it's not just Microsoft took Hadoop and put it on Azure. We're actually working very closely with the community. We are making contributions back to improve Hadoop, whether it's the Hive query language, the way it stores data, the way it integrates with the Azure environment, all of these. We have actually hundreds of engineers and tens of thousands of lines of code that we have contributed back into the public Hadoop distribution, working closely with Hortonworks. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about in terms of our demos is Office 365. I don't know how many of you have heard about Office 365. This is our cloud-based Office, some of you have. And just like application developers, third parties are building applications on Azure, actually parts of Office 365 run on Azure as well. Right, so we are using our own platform to run our cloud applications, many of them. One feature of Office 365 we call Power BI. Power BI stands for Business Intelligence, BI stands for Business Intelligence, but it's really our offering to make analytics. It's one thing to run Hadoop with a PowerShell in a command line, but your average user is not going to do that. How are they going to get their job done and get insight? Power BI is our offering so that information workers can use the tools they are most familiar with, which is Excel, but connect to the power of analytics, whether it's Hadoop-based, relational-based, OLAP-based, streaming-based, or whatever else, and have access to powerful visualizations that they can use. So Edwin's going to take you through a demo of Power BI.
Okay. So after our Hadoop cluster has been running for a while, collected a lot of gigantic volumes of data, how do we visualize it? How do we take out intelligence and information from it? So the Power BI is a tool that we plug in to Excel, but this is not just Excel. It actually can connect to the Hadoop cluster on the cloud and taking the data from the cloud as a source. So I'm not going to go through the front part of tapping to the source, but pretending that we already have absorbed, imported all the data here.
Don't try to log in again.
Yeah, I know. So the spreadsheets here capture the last 10 years, the Hong Kong property price changes in all over Hong Kong in the last 10 years. So let's see what information what we can take out from it. Prakash, I guess you from ALD, you in Shanghai, and you came to Hong Kong. I guess you had seen the beautiful sight in these few days. I guess you probably wanted to really live here, right?
It's very attractive indeed. You know, sunshine.
Yeah, especially in the luxury apartments.
Don't have to worry about
there.
PM 2.5.
Okay, let me show you, if you're going to live here, what's going to take you. Let me transform this Excel boring data into something my boss can
Non-technical people can consume. Say it.
Right,
say it.
okay. Okay, we launched a function called the Power Maps, with just the Excel data. And it's going to open up the maps. Let me close down these things. With the data from the spreadsheets. So first of all, I want to show everyone in last 10 years what happened to our Hong Kong property market through the maps. Let me play that. Okay, let me make it a little bit smaller. Let me play that. So from 2004, we start to capture the data. We see the bottom bubble is actually the transaction volume, and the bar are actually the property fluctuations, the change of the unit price. So you see the red bar means that actually in that month actually has gone up, and the green has gone down, and the green means it actually comes down. So you can see throughout the time period.
I see mostly green.
Right, mostly green, which means that people are getting some income from their properties and dropping from month to month fluctuate. Let's fast forward to some of the important events that people in this room still remember. Let's fast forward to 2008 and see whether you remember what happened in that year. Financial Tasmania. So what happened to the property market is during October, November, all the property price goes red. A lot of people lose a lot of money, but only in few months, the property market has picked up already. Transaction volumes goes up and the price goes up as well. So that makes Hong Kong recover pretty well. And then let me fast forward also to last year. Remember last year what happened? During the October and the November time frames, when the government started to announce the double tax policy, and see how that affects April, May, June, and you see in the September, right, October, we're seeing the transaction volume has shrunk after the announcement of the double tax policy, and that affects the property markets quite a lot. A lot of transaction volume has gone down, which because you can see that we still have a pretty good recovery even for the financial crisis. Hong Kong market can recover.
Great.
So you sure you want to invest, right?
So where should I invest?
Oh, where should you invest? Yeah, that's okay.
Not
Let
that
me
I have
show
the
you.
money, but I can ask, right?
Okay, let me show you another one. This one show you the groups of value, the unit price of like per square feet in Hong Kong can quite high, over 120,000.
What?
Yeah.
Per what?
12,000 or less than 8,000.
You have your zeros correct?
Yeah, of course, right. So let me play this. Over the last 10 years, oops, let me move this one out. You can see the distribution of the price of the properties. The red means that those are for you guys, the executives that you go live in luxury apartment has higher over 12,000 per square feet properties. And those, like me, I live somewhere near Shenzhen, cheaper, right?
All right, great. I don't think any place is going to fit in my budget.
Over there, that one, actually somewhere here, the red, the yellow, pretty expensive one.
Yeah, that should be what?
That should be the one you want, right?
Bel Air, right.
Okay. Let's pick that one. That one is called the Resident Bel Air.
Okay.
So move over. Okay, if you have actually picked that one, this chart actually show you whether the investment makes sense or not. That it telling you. Let me go and zoom in the area here. Let me zoom in to Resident Bel Air. This one doesn't move. It's just showing you some of the relative performance.
So what's the cheapest unit price I can get?
This one doesn't show you the unit price, but it shows you the relative performance of that property compared to the market. So Resident Bel Air should be somewhere. That's a Chifu, and this one, the South Horizon. Oh, that's a Resident Bel Air. It's okay. It drops a bit. Because maybe of the double income, the double tax policies that the luxury apartment price has gone down a bit. If we want to find somewhere, actually outperform the good investment is actually in here in the east side of the Hong Kong Islands called the Island Resort, Lang Wan Bundou.
Sounds good.
Actually outperform the market quite a lot. Right. Yeah. So this is a simple example of showing you how big data, Power BI can actually help investor like you to make the good decisions.
Window shopping never cost anybody anything. All right. Let's switch back to the slides.
Oh, and also I have another one. I will show you this. I have to show you this one. Okay, let's say that.
Developer now.
It's okay. Very quickly, just I have to show this one. Let's say that for the graph, it's still very hard for people to realize or take out the information. So what can we do? How about you ask me some questions? You want to know the unit price, right?
Yep.
So how about I just type in unit price, gross. That's pretty easy to understand, but the figure here doesn't really show anything. Let me give it more hint of the resident Bel Air. Okay.
Great.
Okay, great. Right. Okay. By date. Show me the chart.
Fantastic.
Okay, it's for the last 10 years. We can make it a little bit narrower between 2010 to 2014.
Super.
Okay, super. Right. Okay. That make sure your investment or your decisions make sense. Comparing that to South Horizon, South Horizon, 可以. Right. So if you invest in here, it's actually seeing the chart is much above the market, right?
Super. So what you're seeing really is how we can make it easy for analytics, right? So click, drag and drop, and even use natural language to ask your questions instead of some query language like SQL or Hive or whatever. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. So you saw 3 demos, mobile services, HD Insight, and then Power BI. So I just want to quickly summarize, Azure, a global platform with global reach, rich functionality. Of course, you expect compute, storage, networking, but really higher level services that help you build applications really quickly. I want to make one thing clear is I know a lot of startups here targeting not only Hong Kong market, but China market as well. And just yesterday, we announced the general availability of Azure in China, offered through our partner, 21viaNet. But this is exactly the same Azure. And you can run your applications, the ones you build here, you can deploy over there, right? And that provides you the reach into mainland as well. And we have actually several customers already running production applications on there. And again, it supports all the same environments that we talk about. We have customers all around the world, various kinds of industries, various kinds of applications, some of the well-known names, whether it's Samsung, Lufthansa, Bwin, which is a betting company, NBC, customers in North America, Europe, Asia, everywhere. who are running already on Azure. And some ones that you might be more familiar with, I wanted to mention. Who watched the Sochi Olympics on a device?
No
Come
one?
on, that's it? 2 people in the audience watched Sochi Olympics on a device? I'm sure many of you did. All of that was streamed out of Azure. All of that was streamed out of Azure. 6,000 hours HD content across 22 different countries. Millions of viewers. Actually, the single largest event, concurrent event, over 2 million viewers for, guess what? Anybody have a guess which was the single largest viewed event in the Sochi Olympics? Opening? Actually, it was not. It was the hockey finals. That was the single largest viewed event. Closer to home, CNTV broadcasts every year, of course, the Chinese New Year program, which millions of people use. And that was also using Azure. The Hong Kong beauty pageant, that's the TVB Fun app that you use to vote. That's built on Azure. And finally, you might have heard about Titanfall. That's running on Azure.
Transferring to pilot.
All right. All of those are running on Azure. Hopefully, you'll be using Azure as well. If you want to try Azure, you can go to that website address, windowsazurepass.com. You get a free trial for Azure. I believe all of you have a sheet in your package. It looks kind of like this. And has the information on how to sign up for a free trial of Azure. Thank you very much. Oh, I wanted to say one more thing. There's a session in the afternoon as well. If you want more details, it'll go into the workshop to get more hands-on experience with Azure. Thank you.